This morning, a legal filing claims a local school district is not protecting its staff members from its students.
The lawsuit says more than half of the staff members at that district have had a student try to physically hurt them. Fox 12's Mia Villanueva joins us live in studio to explain why educators say the district and the state are to blame. Mia?
Kim, Shauna, the lawsuit details claims by 5 current or former employees at Salem-Keizer Public Schools. Each incident detailed in the suit is different, but very shocking, and they all boil down to this conclusion. The district did not train its staff members on how to properly restrain a student that's having a violent outburst. And the lawsuit claims this is happening often to hundreds of employees. According to a survey cited in the suit, of the over 1,200 employees within the district, more than half have reported a student tried to harm them or others in the last year. The lawsuit also says the district is severely short-staffed in IAs. Those are instructional assistants. Those are staff members who provide help to students with special needs. 4 of the 5 plaintiffs listed in the suit are those who work or have worked with special needs students. Take Alex Stewart, who has worked for the district as an IA for over 5 years, and at McKay High School specifically since 2021. Stewart claims that they sustained 2 separate concussions during the 2021-2022 school year. Most recently, the lawsuit cites another injury that Stewart sustained in February of this year after a student body slammed them into an elevator. And it's not just teachers of students with special needs that are experiencing this. Stacy McGowan, who teaches 1st grade at Wright Elementary School, says a student slapped and punched her in the face while screaming back in February as well. Now, we reached out to the district for comment, and they sent us this statement. It reads in part, quote, "The district is concurrently balancing employee safety with state and federal legal requirements for the education of students with disabilities." The district also told Fox 12 staff members who work in specialized classrooms are trained in de-escalation techniques. They say general education teachers and staff are trained as needed, though, to support students with complex behaviors. Kim and Shauna, back to you.